I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And, we don't always get to revisit great books like the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. But Honorée Fanonne Jeffers, who is one of my favorite humans on the planet, has written an essay collection called Misbehaving at the Crossroads. It's out now. And actually, what we're going to do is sort of jump back and forth between both books because, well, one of 2021's biggest books was, in fact, the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. And it's almost 800 pages. It's delicious. I love this book so much. And I know I shouldn't, it's not a food book, but I mean, it is, kitchen table epic. I'm stealing your own words to describe your book, but I love this book and you know this. And yes, it was an Oprah pick and all sorts of other stuff too. I mean, it was the thing that summer. And Honorée, I'm so happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. This is such a treat. Such a treat.
Misbehaving at the Crossroads, though, I really do want to start with the title because I saw it announced and I thought, oh, Robert Johnson. I can't hear Crossroads without hearing the blues. And, essay collections aren't necessarily the first thing someone's going to think of when they hear your name, right? They're going to think the poetry. There were 5 collections of poetry before love songs. And of course, love songs, again, almost 800 pages.
My big chubby baby.
I love your big chubby. Your big chubby baby is awesome.
Uh-huh.
But Crossroads and essays, like we got to start with Crossroads.
So the thing is that I was mentored by the great Black poet Lucille Clifton, and who I call Miss Lucille.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Lucille used to say, always be open to the word.
Yeah.
However the word comes to you. So for me, the project now it's taken me, my first poem was published in 1997.
Wow. Okay.
So we're coming up on 30 years. So I realized probably about 10 years back that my career project was Black women, the history of Black women and Black people in these United States. And so whatever I'm writing, whether it's poetry, whether it's fiction, whether it's essays, it all comes back to these same themes. I am hoping that I don't write the same way about these same themes,
mm-hmm.
but that's really how I ended up. I've always written essays, but they've tended to be occasional essays. Someone will ask me to write a review, like I wrote the review of Toni Morrison's Recitatif. An expanded version of that essay appears in this book. But in terms of the Crossroads, and then we'll sort of get back to how I started writing this book.
Yeah.
The Crossroads is a metaphor for several issues. The first would be when we hear the term crossroads in a non-Black context, it typically means a place of crisis. Okay. For me, what I thought, how we poets try to put things in cute ways. I talk about it's where trouble meets hope.
Yeah.
Or trouble meets possibility, right? Because whenever you're at a crossroads, you have to figure out which way do I go? And you've got 4 possible directions, okay? North, northeast, south, and west. The second issue with the crossroads is a cultural notion. And in Africana, which Africana means the entire diaspora. I see you nodding your head. It's so lovely that you know these things. Means the entire diaspora. Here, in the Western Hemisphere and across the water in Africa, the global diaspora is Africana. Specifically in North America, it would be African American. But in Africana cultures, plural, the crossroads is a place where you can meet a deity, like Eshu Elegbara of the Yoruba tradition, there are places where people will leave offerings at the crossroads for that deity, to sort of ask permission to speak to other deities. And over here, as you mentioned, Robert Johnson, the blues.
Yeah.
So Robert Johnson, and many people look at Robert Johnson's, I mean, I hesitate to call it a tale because as a person that's descended from root workers, we don't know that he didn't meet the devil at the crossroads. I'm thinking about Sinners, Ryan Coogler's latest masterpiece, which is a fictitious retelling of Robert Johnson's. I mean, he uses vampires instead of the devil, but that's really what it is. And Robert Johnson said he met the devil at the crossroads, and then in exchange for his soul, he was given this supernatural ability to play his instrument, to play the blues. And many people look at the Robert Johnson story as an extension of the Eshu Bara, a tale of the Yoruba tradition. So we see these things crossing the water. Now, the last issue is intersectionality.
Right.
What Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, and I like to mention her name in these interviews because many people throw around the term intersectionality. Right. They misuse it.
Yep.
Okay. They've taken it to apply to not even people of color, which is kind of weird to me. But they also don't know the history behind the term intersectionality, which was coined in, I believe, 1989 or 1991. I'd have to look in the book, right? Because I have, notes in the back, by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw.
Right.
While I think she was still a law student, if I'm not right. And as she originally configured intersectionality, it is Black and woman. So I am not only Black, I am not only woman, I am both.
Right.
And so, these are the ways that the crossroads, and, but what I try to do is I try to boil it down so people, in the book, so people's eyes don't start glazing over. But as, someone who's written for nearly all of my adult life, and then I taught both literature and creative writing, I like to have these little things that I play with and I think about and I return to them.
When you and I were chatting before we hit record, we were talking about
in our juicy conversation.
The conversation that is just for us.
Right.
But the thing that I kept coming across as I was reading Misbehaving was how much of your story overlaps with the novel and how much you have put of yourself on the page in a different way in the essay. I mean, it's a mix of memoir and literary criticism and literary theory and history. And there's something you said years ago about Lucille Clifton, actually, that I'm sort of still turning around in my brain, having read both of these books in quick succession again. History hovers over each line, lending rhythm. And I don't think you as Honorée, that whether you're working in poetry or prose or essay, fictional prose or essay, you never let go of the history. Everything
I never let go of it.
Yeah. And the way you brought together sort of past and present in Du Bois love songs, and the way you bring your own history, the evolution of Honorée in Misbehaving at the Crossroads, they're kind of a perfect fit. They're like a box set.
I do. I'm so glad you see that, because I do look at these two books as companion pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been really beautiful, as you know, last week was the first leg
Yep.
of my book tour, is that people are buying love songs and misbehaving. Typically, when you go on book tour, you'll get a few people who'll buy your earlier books, but nearly, I'd say probably about 75% of the people who bought the book, they either have brought their copy of
Mm-hmm.
love songs with them and they want it signed, or they have bought the book on site, and it is a companion piece.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're writing a book, you don't think about, okay, sort of, sometimes you'd be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that.
Right.
But you can kind of tell when somebody's trying to shoehorn
Mm-hmm.
information
Oh,
into
yeah.
a book.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. And
you did the research. I believe you. I believe you did the research.
It's not sexy. It's not sexy at all, right? So, but when I came back to the book after the first draft was done, I said, well, I think this book will be good for readers who really wanted to know how much of my life was in love songs.
Right.
And when you read this book, you understand love songs truly is fictitious. It's based upon history. But my daddy was nowhere near as nice as Jeffrey Garfield. I never had an Uncle Root in my life.
Right.
My relationship with my mother was not as sweet as Ailey's and Bill's.
Right.
Even though there's been one reviewer who said I lost a sister to addiction, my sister Val was right. She was sober.
Wait, somebody actually said
someone
that in a review?
said like Aileen Jeffers lost a sister to addiction. And I'm like, no, my sister Val struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, but she was sober like 35 years.
Right.
Or more when she passed away. And so, but what I will say is writing Lydia in love songs came about as a result of my grappling with how insensitive and cruel I had been as a young person to my sister Valjean when she was struggling.
Right.
Because it took me many years to understand that addiction is a disease.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah.
And that, I have many regrets in my life, but that is one regret, that I wasn't kind to her and that we weren't close when she passed away, because I think our relationship had been damaged. Right. So one of the things that love songs is, it's an aspirational, alternative history of what I wished my life had been.
Right.
I wished my parents had been like Bill and Jeff. I wished we had land in Putnam County. I wished I had an Uncle Bruce. I wished I had a David James. So in the history is very similar.
Right.
Because my mother is from Eatonton, Georgia. And she taught Alice Walker. And what's interesting is I do, drop all of these references to The Color Purple and all of that through love songs. But it's really a companion piece. This is who I truly am, as opposed to, what people maybe think I might have been.
But also you have, or at least in Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, character reveals story. And the essays do the same
Yes.
thing. I mean, you and your character and the people we meet
Mm-hmm.
around you, I mean, we're going to come back to your mama. We are
Mm-hmm.
absolutely coming back to your mama. Reveal themselves through their characters, and they bring us into this world. And I've said this before on the show, but world building has been sort of co-opted by science fiction and fantasy, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
somehow a word that we only now use for a certain kind of writing. And I'm sorry, any
Yes.
words on the page, poetry, essays, longer form
Builds a
narrative nonfiction,
world.
short stories, you're working on the story collection coming next year. All of these things, like, we are building a world. And
Mm-hmm.
my experience of Ailey's life and Belle's life and everyone's life in love songs is because you built a universe that I might. Now, there are elements that I, place is a big thing, right? Education
Mm-hmm.
is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
The whole respectability,
The whole
like, all of it.
respectability
Oh,
politics, which
right? Like,
doesn't get addressed the way that I would have wanted it to if I had been if love I mean, because when we look at love songs, I'm just keeping it real.
yeah,
A book like that is typically somebody's third or fourth book.
correct.
People usually do not publish that kind of hefty book for their first novel. And I do think, aside from, the great Oprah Winfrey, I
Mm-hmm.
do think that that's why people were fascinated by it. Like, wow, okay, dang.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a very kind, I forgot his name, but kind critic, when Love Songs was announced as one
Mm-hmm.
of the 10 best books of the year,
Yep.
right? He said, I just love how she just came out. She just announced,
Yep.
her ambition. But the thing is that my fifth book of poetry, The Age of Phillis, which is, Imagine the Life and Times of Phillis Wheatley Peters, is really a novel in verse.
Right.
And so one of the things that needs to be addressed, I think, more when people are looking at historical fiction is that there's always a world building.
Right.
You have to create this world. You have to find ways of subtly announcing, okay, well, this is what's going on now in this particular historical era without being wonky with it.
Yeah.
Well, wonky is not the word I'm looking for, but let me also say this,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. I always learn new things about my
Yeah.
work whenever I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
It's interesting that people are like, oh, there's just, the few people, which I've been very blessed that
Mm-hmm.
most people seem to have loved the love songs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the even the people who loved it are like, there's so much detail,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much this, that, and the other. I love fantasy
Yeah. Yeah.
and I love science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you notice is that nobody ever complains about the level of detail. You'll have one person walk in to a
Mm-hmm.
scene and walk out, and you never meet that person again, and nobody cares.
Right.
Okay. Like I read N.K. Jemisin, and I noticed that there are all these sort of little details. And I think that it is a whole new world. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different world.
Right.
Hopefully we will not return to that world in American history. But so yes, with the essays, there are moments where I gesture towards these sort of high
Mm-hmm.
intellectual whatever. But then what I do is I pull back or I'll say something
Mm-hmm.
to the reader to let them know I see you.
Right.
Okay. I'm aware you're here. And so I'm going to walk you through this, okay, so that you're not confused.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been confused. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm taking 35 or more years of study and trying to, but there's world building in the essays. So there are these essays that deal with the history, and then we come back to the family.
Right.
So that you always know this history has come to bear upon my life personally.
Our art doesn't exist. Our art needs real context, right? And we're going to obviously stick to books more than film, although Sinners is brilliant. If you haven't seen Sinners, go see it.
Oh, good. Real good. And I'm real mean when it comes to film. So if I have said it's brilliant, I really think it's brilliant. Because when everybody was talking about it, I was like, this ain't going to be nothing. But I'm going to watch it so I can talk bad about it.
And
when we got to that scene, you know which scene I'm talking about.
I do.
We got to that scene. I said, oh, okay. All right, this young blood done let us know what he's working with. Okay, Ryan Coogler. What I'm really excited about is who's he gonna be in 10 years?
Well, we're gonna find. Luckily, we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out. Right.
But the context around that film, right? When you know the history of those kinds of communities, when you know the history, like, was I surprised to see Chinese people in the middle of Mississippi?
Were you surprised?
I was not.
Were you surprised to see Chinese people? Were you surprised to see Choctaw Native Americans?
Nope. Not
when Native Americans are part of the history of the blues in the Mississippi Delta. Right. If you know, you know.
Right.
Okay, like Quiet as It's Kept, when Miss Oprah, it was on one of these shows when she got her DNA done.
Oh, that Skip Gates show, the PBS one?
I think it was, but
okay.
she's part Asian. She has like a little bit of yeah.
There are a lot of Mongols. There are a lot of Mongols.
I can't use that word.
I know,
you can.
Genghis Khan. No, Genghis Khan had a lot of children and a lot of
all over the place.
The Mongols.
He got around
a lot of Europe and a lot of all of Asia. I mean,
yeah. So what he really did, and then he incorporated the Irish.
Yeah.
Okay, because the blues is creolized music.
Yep.
It pulled just like, it's the parent of jazz. So it pulls from all of these different places. It is primarily African American, but there are all of these influences that come to bear. Right. And you can really see the intellect.
Yep.
Right. And that's one of the, I'm not saying I'm Ryan Coogler, but I haven't made $1 billion or whatever, but that's one of the things that I try to do is I try to create something that all the people, there's a poem that I wrote years ago, this in my second book of poetry, The 5-Note Range of Sorrow.
Yeah.
And in traditional churches, when you had a line singing, it's only like a 5-note range. And it says, wait in this spirit work, music song, something like that. The 5-note range of sorrow that all the church can sing. So that's what I want to do. That is what, and I've been very intentional with that since Love Songs.
Yeah.
I want to have highbrow, quotidian, and be able to pull everybody in, because I want a lot of different classes to be, my first audience is Black women, right? But I want everybody to be able to, I want white folks to understand you are not being coddled.
Right.
I am not sanitizing this for you. You need to know the conversations that Black people have behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know that. We're tired of lying to you so that you can feel comfortable. Don't you want to know the truth? I want to know the truth. So, there are all these sort of components in the book as I'm talking to Black women, but I'm aware, even if I'm talking to Black women, this is an open space.
Right.
Not a private space.
But it's that collision too between the public and private where we get the art. And that to me, and I mean, okay, I'm using collision instead of intersection, but that's a very deliberate word choice on my part.
Right.
Collision to me, when we see, especially when it comes to respectability, right? Like respectability is something that plagues everyone's community, especially when it comes to women, right? Like we're all supposed to be well behaved and smile and
and I'm not free of respectability politics. When I go out into the world, I don't cuss folks out anymore. That is part of, like I was at the airport and I was you go into the airport and sometimes you open up one of them stalls and it's just real nasty. And I don't feel like encountering other real nasty stalls. So I wait, so I was waiting outside the stall, but a respectable distance. And this white lady comes out the stall and she goes into Karen mode. There were other stalls available. Now, the old Honorée would have snapped on her. But the new Honorée, I said, is there some reason that you're concerned about what stall I'm going into? No, but what I said, and I did this. Thank you. And every time she kept talking, I just over-talked her and smiled. Thank you. And this Black woman was looking at me like, well done, girl. But that's the respectability politics, because I can't get arrested in that airport, So there are ways that I still negotiate with respectability politics. There was a white guy that stood in line and bought a book from me last week. And he said, I was raised by a Black woman and she loved me. And I'm thinking, white man, I don't want to hear about your maid. I am in a $400 dress. Okay. I don't want to hear about your maid. Okay. Now, the old Honorée would have said that instead of talking bad about him on this podcast. But the new Honorée, signifying as it were, the new Honorée simply said, oh, okay. And I just let along. And I saw he was waiting for me to congratulate him. But we don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. If you had voted for Kamala Harris, I would still be congratulating you for, as we used to do with my little nephew, for pee-peeing in the pot. When he was in potty training and he pee-pee in the pot. And then he'd come in and he'd say, I pee-peed. And we'd be like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore with white people. That, it's time, it's nation time. To quote the great Amir Barak, I'm not playing these games with you anymore. So you need to know it's inappropriate to talk to a Black woman on her book tour about your maid. There's no shame in her being a maid. My grandmother was the domestic, as my mother was at a time. But you need to understand there's something wrong if the only way you can connect with me is to talk about somebody who used to clean your toilet. That's an issue. But it's not for me to work it on out for him. It's for him to work it on.
I want to go back to your mom for a second because I hadn't known that she had been a domestic. I knew your mother as a professor. I mean, I didn't know her personally. My experience with her obviously comes from your work. But she was a professor in a moment where
Yes,
she was rare
very
in her
rare.
field. I
Mhm.
mean, the idea that she taught Alice Walker, I'm like, well, I guess someone did have to teach Alice Walker, but wow.
Well, she
You
taught
know,
Alice Walker in high school in Eatonton.
right. But still, you
And
understand why I'm having a moment of right.
mm,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I had that same moment
Mm-hmm.
because it took me a really long time to understand that the Alice that she would refer to
Mm-hmm.
was Alice Walker.
Right.
Okay. It took me into my early 30s. And I was like, wait, it's just like with Saint Sanchez.
Right.
So I would be on the phone and she would say something. I remember first time she did it and she said, blah, blah, blah. And I was on the phone with Toni. This was when Professor Morrison was still alive.
Right.
On the phone with Toni last week and she blah, blah, blah. And I said, and she said, Toni Morrison, my dear sister. Who do you think? You know, Miss Side got a way about herself.
Mm-hmm.
4'11" and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she get that bass in her voice. You know, that sort of sweet contempt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who else would I be referring to? Like when she would speak of Elizabeth,
Mm-hmm.
and then I found out it was Elizabeth Catlett.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The great African, or she would speak of Googie. And I would know that she was talking about Googie Watiang. I was like, okay, this is deep. So my parents, you know, my father taught at Howard with Toni Morrison.
Right. Right.
Okay. So, but yeah, with Alice Walker, Mama was responsible for her applying to Spelman, for her getting into Spelman, the way that Miss Janet Virginia Talley
Mm-hmm.
had been responsible for Mama going.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Mama was not only for the time, but for her class.
Yeah.
Because she was very poor. And you know, she used to wear feed sacks. My grandma Florence was an expert seamstress.
Mm-hmm.
So she could go downtown and look at a dress in the window and then come home and make patterns out of butcher paper. And then she would, I remember one summer, it was me and my sister and all my cousins, my sister Cece. And she met, you know how in The Sound of Music, when Maria has all of the little kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that then become her stepchildren, and they've all got variations of different outfits. Grandma would do that. But Mama talked about how people would come to the school and complain that she was getting attention from the principal and the teachers because she was so poor and she was raggedy. And they felt like, and she was dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
They felt like other children should get that kind of attention. And she said, Mr. Matt, who, you know, she refers to in that essay, he said, well, you know, Trelly is the smartest.
Right.
You know, so.
Well,
Yeah.
and both of your parents were professors. Both of them
Yes.
were writers. I mean, I don't think it ever occurred to you that you were not going to follow in their footsteps.
Oh, yes, it did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes,
All
it
right. Give
did.
it up. Give it up. Give
Yes,
it up.
it did.
Because, I mean, you know,
Mhm.
I've read your work. I've read it across
Yeah, but
genres.
Daddy was mean. You know,
Okay.
I have forgiven Daddy. It's different forgiving Daddy than forgiving Mama.
Right.
Because, you know, I was carried in Mama's body, her flesh, her blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
my flesh and blood, but also her language, her
Right.
people, you know, all of that, her folklore.
Mm-hmm.
But Daddy was mean, and Daddy was the one that everyone acknowledged. Mama was really a better writer than me.
Oh,
But
okay.
but like so many other women
Mm-hmm.
throughout history,
Mm-hmm.
her talent was set to the side so she could edit him. So my father's first book of poetry that came out from the historic Broadside Press,
Yep.
founded by Dudley Randall, Mama, behind Daddy's bed, typed up his manuscript and sent it to Dudley Randall.
Oh, I did.
So Mama edited his work and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But Mama was a real writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I wished that she could have done something with her work. And then by the time, I didn't really understand after she had her stroke, things were different. And so that essay that you have, we really worked months on that. And I was not necessarily a nice editor. I would be like, no, because she was really doing politics or respectability at the end. And I cut all of that. I was like, no, you need to learn how to be honest. All of this, we're great. Because,
the generational divide is a trip. It is an absolute trip, whether it's in a novel or just sitting across from you at the dinner table.
It really
generational divide is wild.
And particularly when you talk, and you know what I'm talking about, when you're talking about people of color, there is a curation of who we are as it relates to white folks. We can't show any negativity. We can't. This is one of the reasons sometimes we accept people who are bad people or different things like that in Black communities if they're mean. If they're cisgender, heterosexual mean, right? But I wanted that essay by Mama in there because this is just as much her book as it is mine.
Yeah.
These stories of great grandma Mandy. I have her little proverbs, going through there, right? Of her story about her daddy saying things ain't always gonna be this way. The Bra Rabbit tales, which we don't say burr in the Black community. I first heard these through Mama. So there's so much of who I am intellectually that people really didn't acknowledge as intellect. Daddy was, the one. He was light-skinned. He had 2 degrees from Columbia. He came from this upper middle class. Even if they didn't have a lot of money, they had status, right?
Yeah.
But Mama is really the reason that I'm a writer. And so when you say it's a foregone conclusion or something like that, because Daddy was mean, I fought being a writer for years.
Yeah.
And I've told the story before when I just had to just surrender. My dreams are very important to me. And I would be having these dreams and I would be writing across the page. Poetry. That's how I first started with poetry. 1991. And I would wake up and I couldn't remember anything. This went on for months. And then in 1992, I woke up one night and I could remember. Because when I hadn't remembered, there was this ecstasy. And I was just like, I know it's good. I know. And I would wake up and I'd be so grief-stricken that I had lost, whatever it was. Well, one night I woke up and I could remember. And I started writing things down. And that's how I started as a poet. And that's when I realized I couldn't avoid it anymore.
All right, fair enough. So poetry is how we get here.
Yes.
Poetry is how we grow. I want to spend a little bit of time with Lucille Clifton for a second, because one of the pleasures of talking to you means I have, not that I need an excuse, but that there's a lot of reading that happens in my life. So I have that giant BOA Lucille Clifton.
Oh yeah, the collected.
Right, the Kevin Young edited one. And it's such a delight because you just sort of flip around in there, right? And she's got that poem about Philadelphia and Move and Wilson Goode, among other things. So, I mean, And it's just, I mean, this body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's
still...
even more in the archive.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just putting in a request to whoever controls the estate and the archives. Could we have more, please? But I mean, she starts what, in 68? Is that when the first sort of
well, that's when the first book.
That's the first book, right?
68, 69. But she's been writing poetry since she's a young girl.
Okay, so really,
in the archives, we have her we have some unpublished poems that did not appear.
Okay.
Some of these poems I haven't yet read it, but I think may appear in Kazim Ali's Black Buffalo Woman, which is a collection of essays on Lucille Clifton.
Okay.
But yeah, she had a real great influence on my life, particularly when I met her.
Okay.
When my mother and our relationship was starting to crack. Starting to fracture. And so Miss Lucille really became the person as things started getting worse and worse with Mama. I held on to her.
Right.
I needed a lot of care.
Right.
And, now I'm kind of embarrassed about how I just sort of glommed onto her. But according to her children, she really loved me too.
I was about to say, I don't think Lucille Clifton did anything that Lucille Clifton did not want to do.
I don't think so either.
I never had the great fortune of meeting her in person, but I have to say, I'm pretty sure she didn't do anything she didn't want to do.
She really, I do think she really loved me because she still comes to me in dreams.
Yeah.
And around her birthday, there's always a sign of some sort that she gives me. I just told this story publicly at the Lucille Clifton celebration at the Clifton house. Her oldest daughter bought the house that they had lost back in 1980. But I told this, and I'll tell it. It's a very short story. Right after she died, and I was struggling with this novel. So it was with the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. It was a hot mess. And there's always a moment when I'm writing a book where I reach a point of despair.
Yeah.
Where I say, I'm a hack. This book is stupid. Nobody's going to like it. So I had this dream. And in the dream, I was in Putnam County. I was in rural Georgia.
Okay.
And I'm driving up one of them little narrow dirt roads. And in the distance is one of those clapboard churches like Red Mound.
Yeah.
Or the real church that I attended, Flat Rock Primitive Baptist, as a little girl. And I see this car coming toward me. And they're both older cars, like late 70s, early 80s, right? Those big boats of cars. Yeah. So I start moving the car on, partially onto the grass so that this car can do the same. And as the car comes toward me and the doors are kissing nearly.
Yeah.
Miss Lucille is driving the car.
Oh.
But in the passenger seat was Toni Morrison.
Oh.
And so I say, Miss Lucille, what you doing here, Professor? What's out here? And she said, Ani. And then I woke up.
Wow.
And so this was maybe about 2 or 3 years before Mama and I became fully estranged.
Right.
And I told her the dream.
Yeah.
And she said, that was a sign. My mama was a dreaming woman.
Yeah.
She said, that was a sign from Lucy. Don't you remember when she said you were going to do great things? Lucille is trying to tell I always called her Miss Lucille. But Mama and Daddy were friends.
Right.
With Miss Lucille and Mr. Fred, her husband. And the kids remember my coming to that house
Right.
in Baltimore, but I don't remember it because I was only
You were so
5.
little. Yeah, you were
I was
little.
so little. But that was something that kept me going through that novel. But I couldn't understand what was this whole thing about Toni Morrison.
Right.
Because I didn't know at the time, I'm embarrassed that I was that big age, that I did not know that Toni Morrison had edited Miss Lucy.
Right.
But also now I do fiction.
Right.
So I'm, these two women are driving in the same car, as it were, for me.
I also just love the idea that Lucille Clifton's poetry is so accessible. It's so exciting. It is such a great way to experience. Jericho Brown, who you're also quite close to, same
Very
thing.
close, yes.
But the work is accessible. And so if poetry feels like something that's like this art where you're like, oh no, everything's going to sound like Keats.
You see my facial expression.
Yeah, no. But everything's.
But it's brilliant at the same time. I just gave the lecture for her birthday.
Yeah.
Okay. They had the festival. And I talked about, because I have invented several poetics. Okay.
Yes, I do know this.
So I talked about the communal lyric in her work.
Yep.
And one of the things about a Lucille Clifton poem is it's accessible to everybody, but there are codes embedded in the work. There are allusions that if you know the history that she is referencing, then the poem becomes even richer. Have you ever had like a particular dish and a food, and you'll taste the first bite and you're like, oh, this is real good. And then in a few seconds,
there's something behind it. Yeah, without a doubt.
There's a depth that's Lucille Clifton poem. Right. So it's very accessible, but there is this real intellect. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I was so close to her and why she did love me, because Miss Lucille is of the I don't talk about it, I be about it school. And I'm the same. When people meet me and they'll be like, oh, your novel and blah, blah, blah. But I'm from country folk. So after a while of a few seconds of this, it's embarrassing when people are like, oh, you're da-da-da-da, and this is brilliant, and da-da-da-da. And I always say, I did my best. And they'll start laughing.
I'm sorry. That is really funny, though. That is a very funny response.
Yeah. I did and I remember I was talking to this one guy that was trying to get next to me, this little young blood. And, but I ain't raising no children.
Yes, I do know.
Right, I ain't raising no children.
We've had this conversation. Yeah, we're not.
Right, we had this conversation.
But no, you are not.
I ain't raising no children. So, and he said, oh my God, it's so brilliant and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I did my best. I think I can do better.
Yeah.
And he said, you think you can do better? See, yeah. But all I can see is the typo.
Right.
So when I go back, I'm like, damn it. Copy editor then, because with poets, everything must be pristine and clean. You have to get past that with prose. But I will say this. I pre-copy edited Misbehaving.
Okay.
I pre-copy edited because I was like, I will allow up to 5 typos. That's it. After 5 is sloppy. Yeah. And I'm mad. So, yeah.
We get a story collection next year, 2026. Set
if God says the same.
Set in Chickasetta, that we are going back to Chickasetta.
Yes.
Which I'm very excited about. Because place, obviously, you are so grounded in place.
I am very grounded in.
And I am delighted that we get Chickasetta. When did you start working on the stories though? Because I mean, you've got the essays going. All of the you were teaching. I mean, you only retired recently, so
just retired. My separation date, official separation date, is August the 1st.
Oh, seriously? I thought all of the paperwork was done.
And they sent me something, and I'm like, Lord Jesus, I might have to be living out of my savings for a month or two. But I'm always working on several books at the same time.
Okay.
I am also, and I used to talk to my students about this, a reduce, reuse, recycle.
Oh, interesting.
Just because something isn't working in one project, do not delete it. We now have the cloud. Keep it on the cloud. So now, I am not one of those people who will pull something off the cloud and just dump it in there without revision. But there are things that really work in particular projects that don't work in other projects. So the first story in A Simple Promised Land, which is the short story collection, was published in 2000.
Oh, okay. So you've been circling around this for a minute.
I've been circling around this for a minute, and then there are new stories. I had a story that came out in the New Yorker, and I'm working on probably about 4 or 5 new stories for the project.
Okay.
It's I don't want to give away too much of my mojo, but I play with genre. Because I like to play with genre. I like to surprise people.
Yep.
I also like for people to understand, and again, this is why I love talking to you, because I figure things out when I'm talking to you, that African American culture pulls from a lot of different arenas, right? And I think one of the reasons that I like to play with these different kind of subgenres is that I have had people in so many unspoken ways or microaggressive ways basically tell me, stay in your lane, right? I was talking to somebody a while back, and they were like, well, misbehaving it's not exactly scholarship. And I was like, yes, it is scholarship. I'm thinking.
Did they not see the footnotes? Did they not? Wait, there's a giant index that actually
Did they not see? I don't have an index because I was too tired at that point.
Okay,
but did they not see?
There's a giant bibliography, my bad.
All them notes in Chicago.
Yeah,
every single one of those end notes in Chicago. And let me tell you something. Chicago is the bane of my existence. It's the bane of my existence. It changes. The period got to go here 1 year, and then you got to change. But, yes, I am a scholar. I don't, and it's so funny because I was talking to someone else, and they said, do you claim historian? I think it was Imani Perry. Do you claim? Let me tell you something. I was like, I'm going to be talking to her twice, this fall, from in my book tour and then at the National Book Festival. Is this going to be boring? Let me tell you something. I had that conversation last week with that sister. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to her again. Because know how there are things. It's the same way with you. There are layers. And you're like, oh my God, I wish I could have said this, that, and the other. But yeah, I do feel like this is not I'm doing it in a new way, but I feel like this is not new what I'm doing. Black creative writers have always done scholarship. Not everyone, but before people started making these rigidly controlled categories, right? You always, I mean, I know people that teach Langston Hughes, the Negro artist in the Racial Mountain, as scholarship.
Right.
Talk about how do race issues, pop up in people's work or whatever. So, yeah, I'm always working on these different things. And then remember, I'm also working on the Coco novel.
I know. I'm just going to sit here quietly. I know it's coming. I just have to be patient.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here quietly.
Well, that's also why I retired.
Right.
That's also why I retired. I realized I just can't do, for several reasons. First of all, I couldn't be having this conversation with you.
Right.
And be fully myself.
Right.
And still be a full professor sitting in a named endowed chair at a university in this particular political climate. So I knew that I wanted to be fully myself because, as the old folks say, you don't know the hour of the day when you're going to get called to glory. But also, I thought things were going to slow down after, Love Songs had been out a year.
Famous last words.
And it's just the opposite. So I had started becoming very tired.
Yeah.
And so I decided, after a conversation again with Sonia Sanchez, Miss Sonia said, she told me, I was complaining to her, whining about how tired I was, how tired I was at academia, how physically tired I was. And she said, I had the same conversation with Toni. Right before she got to, and again, I said, Toni who? And she said, how many times are you going to do this? You know the Toni I'm talking about. And I thought, this is a sign.
Yeah.
And so, and I can't believe, you don't give up a good job when you a person of color. You don't give up a good job with them good benefits. So it was a very terrifying decision, a decision I had made before the election.
Right.
Once the election came, I said, oh, Honorée, it's time to get on that Underground Railroad. There go Miss Harriet with the lantern in the forest trying to lead you out. You need to follow her. And so I did.
And now we have another story collection. We have the essay collection. There's more work coming, and we're going to sit quietly and remember that the Coco novel is coming because some of us have known about it for a minute and are just being quietly patient. You who I adore, we could stay here for another 4 hours.
I know,
we could actually have our own show. However, I do have to say, we've hit time.
Yes, we have.
I'm so glad we got to do this.
I'm
Honorée,
so glad.
Thank you as always. And Misbehaving at the Crossroads is out now.
It is out now.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.